Welcome to the second lesson in the Clinical Lead Competency, and this area we're going to talk about is adding a new resident to your system. The first video is going to look at doing this through the Care Control mobile system. Once you've logged on to Care Control mobile, if you have a care review security status on your staff record, you will have this care management option shown here. If you click on this option or touch it on your iPad or tablet device, you'll have some care management tools that you can use. The first one being add a new resident. If you click on that option, you'll be able to enter a resident details, which I'll quickly do now. Just touch each of the fields in turn to enter the information. When you get to date of birth on the tablet device, if you hit the left two arrows, it will take you back 5 years at a time, and the right two arrows will take you forward 1 year, and the left will take you through 1 month. So we'll put this guy as the 13th of April 1946. Date of arrival, we're going to say he arrived today. Room number, these are optional, but you can put them in at this stage if you know the room he's going to be going into. So we'll call this one room 6. The location is first floor, and we're going to put a suffix in of A. You don't have to put a suffix in. Okay, so now we're ready to process that new resident. We say yes, and that now loads a screen that says, what do you want to do next? So this stage, we can either go back to the home screen, we can add another resident if we wanted to, or we could go straight to their care plan. For this training video, we're going back to the home screen because we're going to use the Care Control windows to enter more information. Okay, just quickly we'll look at how you can add a new resident via Care Control windows. We're not an administrator, we're going to use the Care Manager window to do this. So if you look at a Care Control windows for staff view, make sure it's on the staff view option over here. We're going to click on where it says Access Managers menu. And when I click on this, it's going to ask me for a PIN number. This PIN number needs to be a staff member who's got the care assessor security privileges. In our demonstration system, if I put in our 4 ones, we then get some additional care managers functionality, and one of them, the top option, is add a new service user. If I click on that option, I get a window up with the same fields that we just saw in the Care Control mobile system. Okay, we've added our resident. We're now going to start to enter some details about that resident. Now we're going to use Care Control windows for this video, but it's really important to understand that you can use Care Control mobile or Care Control windows to make these changes, and it doesn't matter which system you use. So on Care Control windows, we're going to go and look at this resident's care plan, the one we've just added. Click on where it says View Care Plans. You'll see in the list we've got Fred Jones listed. Select that person, and then we'll go to Access Care Plan, and it will load their residents' care plans up for us. The first screen we're going to see is the residents' care plan summary. We're going to go now into their personal details, and from here we can actually start to make some changes. So to make a change on Care Control windows, you need to click this big orange button which says click here to edit care plan. We're then asked to enter a PIN number, so we're going to enter our PIN number in, and we still can't make any changes. We're still unable to make changes to the screen until we've clicked the button where it says click to change record. When we click to change record, it goes to quite a horrible yellow colour, and now we can start to enter some information in. So for example, prefer to be known as, we'll put in Jim. We can enter things about the allergies that the gentleman may have. And any other fields that we can want to choose from. When we've made some changes and we're happy, we hit Save Changes, and that will store any changes that we've made. If we want to make more changes to the record, we click the Change Record again, and we're back into it. We can scroll down the screen and enter some more information. A really important field to fill out is the height field. The height is used to calculate the BMI on lots of the recording screens. So we're going to put a height in of this gentleman of 165 centimetres. If you can't measure the resident, or the resident isn't able to give you their height, you can actually calculate the height based on their ulnar measurement, and the system will calculate the height for you. Again, any changes that you make sure you keep pressing the click to save any changes option, and that information will be stored. Okay, so part of our personal details screen, there is a photograph option, and that is best dealt with as part of the Care Control mobile system. With most of these tablet devices, they have cameras that you can take direct photos of the resident, or you can take a photo and then load the photo against that resident's file. So in Care Control mobile, if we click on where it says resident record care plan information, we have an option at the bottom here which is resident pictures. If you click on that option, we can then select a resident from the list, or select our gentleman that we've added, and now we're able to take a photo. Now, to actually take a photo, you touch the image on the middle of the screen, and here you have two options. Either you can take a picture directly, or you can load a picture from your tablet device's memory, and we would always recommend to load a picture. So what that enables you to do is take lots of pictures of the resident, and then you can choose the best one. When you've loaded your picture, make sure you select save this picture, and that will be loaded against the resident in question. Okay, in this third section we're going to start to complete some of the other information within the care plan, and now we've switched back to Care Control windows. The areas we're going to look at in this little video is the key contacts for the resident and also their personal belongings. Personal belongings currently are only editable via Care Control windows, hence why we're using that platform. Key contacts can be changed within Care Control mobile as well. Okay, so within Care Control windows we're going to go to the care plan again, so let's click on View Care Plans, click on our gentleman Fred Jones, and we're going to go to the top level Access Care Plan, and that will load up his care plan summary. And now we're going to go to different areas, so we're going to click on the bar on the left hand side, and we're going to select where it says Key Contacts. And on Care Control windows you'll see a completely blank screen because we haven't got any contacts yet for this gentleman. Again, we click on the orange button to edit the care plan. We put our PIN number in just to confirm we are who we say we are, and finally we've got to click the change record again, and now we'll have an option to enter a contact detail. So I'm going to quickly enter some information here. Okay, just enter some address information. And we'll make up a telephone number for this gentleman. And then what I always recommend is in the notes section is annotate in there the relationship between this contact and the resident. So here we're going to say it's his son. And if it's a primary contact, if you tick this box at the bottom, that means that for notifications and for printing of labels, etc., this contact will be in the list. At this stage we have a number of options. We can add another contact if we wanted to, or we can delete this contact, which we've only just added, there's no point doing that, or we can then click to save any changes. Okay, so you've seen how you can add a contact. Now we're going to look at how you can enter some personal belongings information. Again, we're going to go to a different section of the care plan, and just to remind you, this is only available currently within Care Control windows. Click where it says Show Care Plan Options, and if we scroll to the very bottom of the screen, you'll see there is a Personal Belongings option. Click on that option there, and we're still in edit mode at the moment, so we've got the option to change record. If we click on that option, we can then start to enter some personal belongings information. Okay, so I'm just going to enter some information in there. Click Save Changes, and we've entered some personal belongings. Okay, in this next section of this video we're going to look at how we can edit and enter food, drink and nutrition information, and also look at the life history option. We're still in our care plan, we've just been looking at personal belongings, and we're going to move now to the food, drink and nutrition tab. So again, on the left hand side, and you'll find it sort of halfway down the screen there where it says food, drink and nutrition. And again, if you want to make some changes here, you've got to click where it says click to change record. Now on this screen, you have a number of fields that you can enter information into. The first area here are their likes and dislikes. This is the foods that they like, and maybe the food and drink they don't like. You can annotate that. Just below that, we have an option for how they're going to choose their meals. If you use Care Control Kitchen, this is important because this will define whether the cooks and care staff choose the meals or whether the resident's able to choose the meals, and that will be based on their level of capacity. So you've got two choices at the moment: that resident is able to choose meals without assistance, or the resident requires staff to assist them in choosing meals. And you can annotate reasons why you've changed that approach. Underneath you've got an option where you can actually change the menu. So when we look at menus a bit later in the competency sets, you'll be able to choose different menu options for residents. Every resident is put onto what's called a standard menu as a default. But if, for example, they're a vegetarian, or if they have a high calorific requirement or a low calorific requirement, you can set menus up for that. And on the right hand side here, you have the ability to record any specific health issues regarding to foods. That might be allergic reactions to specific food allergies. Now, we did enter into this gentleman's personal details that they were allergic to nuts, so we're going to record that in here. And you've got an option here to do spell checking, so we're going to run the spell check on that. Everything looks fine, and when we're happy, we hit Save Changes. Now this option down here where it says Resident Meal Choice History, that is actually dynamic information, and that is driven based on the Care Control Kitchen app, which your kitchen staff may or may not be using. Okay, the next area that we're going to look at is the resident's life history. If I go to the Show Care Plans option, if I scroll to the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's a life history option here. This is an opportunity for you to enter in any information about the resident. We've tried to structure it in a way that means that it'll actually ask you questions for you to enter the information. If you click, as long as you're in edit mode, so if you've got a button up here that says click to change or click to edit, select that option first, enter your PIN number, and then you'll be in this screen here where you can then click this button where it says click here to amend client life history. This screen will now load, and to enter information, first of all you click one of the sections. So if we, for example, select family life as a child, we then have a series of questions that we can answer. Click on the first option, and now we can put a response in. So the first question is when were you born? You can put information there about when they were born. When the information has been filled out, you can then say click update changes and move next, and it will now move to the next record. You notice that the status completed is moved now to 2%. What you can also do on this screen is you can print out a particular section. So if you said print this section only, that will print all the questions related to family life as a child. Or you could put print all sections, and that will print the whole life history workbook. That's quite useful if you wanted to have a care staff member sit with a resident to complete the information, and then that information will be loaded up later on. At any point, just hit the cross at the top of that screen to close it down, and that information will be loaded back into your care plan. We always recommend the life history is something which you will complete over a period of time, so it's not something that you do in one sitting. So at any point you can go back into it again, go into a particular section, and click a question and continue where you left off. Okay, on this next video we're going to be looking at the medication information and medication creams that are recorded in the care plan. The full medication system, care control medication, would replace this particular section. However, if you're not using that system, you can still enter information about the medication the service user is using within the care plan. If we click on where it says View Care Plans, select our service user that we've been working with and then Access Care Plan, the care plan summary screen will load. We can then go onto our options on the left and we can select a medication profile. Now, like all screens within the care plan care control windows, if you want to make some changes, you need to first click onto edit mode. So we're going to click here to edit the care plan, enter our PIN number in, and once the PIN number has been entered, we can now click to change record and we can start to enter our first set of medication. So we're going to put a start date in, but we're not going to put an end date in because this is active medication. Pick a medication type. So we've got three options: regular medication, controlled drug, or cream. So the first one we're going to put in is a regular medication. And then the medicine itself, if we start typing the name, it will come up with some suggestions for us to use. So we're going to put some aspirin in here. And this is where you put in the strength of the actual medication. If it's a PRN medication, then you would tick the as required box. And dosage will be how many tablets for different times of day the resident's going to have. So we're going to say 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening. It doesn't require a body map for this type of medication. And then the reason it's prescribed. So we're going to put in here for pain relief. And now we can go to the next record. So we're going to add 2 records here because I want to also add some cream medication as well. So we're going to put our start date in again, and we're going to put our cream in here, and now we're going to choose our a cream medicine, the strength. And then this will be a PRN medication, and we might say it'd be applicable between morning and the evening. And this is where we are going to tick the box where it says required body map. If you want to have creams being used on the care control mobile system, you must have the medication type as cream and requires a body map ticked. Put a reason in as to why this medicine's been prescribed, and then when we're happy, we hit save any changes, and that information will be stored. Okay, so the second part of this video is looking at the creams within care control. Now, because we entered our medication in the medication profile as a cream, and when we ticked body map required, if we now go onto the cream section, so if we click on where it says show care plan options, and click medication creams, and this part is only available currently within medication in care control windows, we'll now see that that cream has been added, and we can add some further information. So we can click to change record again, and here we can actually mark on the body map where the cream needs to be applied. Okay, we can then put some application information on there. And we can put the frequency in as well. When we're happy with that information, we can then hit Save Changes. The final part of the medication and creams is to show you that how it would then appear in Care Control Mobile. So you've added your medication, you've added your cream information. When your care staff are using Care Control Mobile, they'll click on Record Care Plan Information and they'll click on where it says Creams. And now we will see on our list, under our resident Fred Jones, you can see the pseudocreme has been highlighted. And if we were to mark that that has been applied, we could select that particular resident and we can then select a cream application comment. But what you can also do is you can click on the little eye icon here, and that will actually pull up on the body map the information that we've entered in against that cream record. So it's available for the care staff to see on the iPads when they're actually administering the cream information. Okay, we're now going to look at one of the most important parts of a care plan, and this is typically completed by a clinical lead within the organisation, and that is the care review. Now, the care review is part of the care plan, and you would have seen in the earlier video, it's actually the core of the care plan. We're going to access the care review for our new resident, and to do that we go to View Care Plans, select our resident again, and we'll select Access Care Plan to take us to the Care Plan Summary screen. When the Care Plan Summary loads, we can then go and look at the care review by clicking where it says Show Care Plan Options and select Care Reviews. Now this screen will load and it will show you all the care reviews completed so far. As you can see in this example, the previous care plans will be shown in this blue area here, and we currently haven't got any care plans. So we're going to go click to edit care plan as per normal, enter our PIN number, and now we are in a stage where we can actually start the care review. Now you can do this within Care Control Mobile, but we recommend you do this on Care Control Windows because then you've got access to a keyboard, because there will be more typing to be done during the care review. Now this is our first care review session. As it says here, the initial care review assessment has not yet been completed, and you can start it by clicking where it says Start Care Review here, the green button. So we're going to click that button now. And that now loads our care review. Okay, so the care review is quite a large document, and how I want to describe it to you is the first page is what's called the introduction, and that's the page that you start with. And that information here needs to be completed, so you can highlight how the review would take place, whether family members were involved, whether the service user was involved. Now in order to move to the next section, well, in this particular example is health continence, we've got to be able to hit the next button down here. Now we can't do that until we've answered these questions. So the first question is, have you asked the service user to take part in the review? We can say yes. Have you asked any family members to take part? Say yes. We can provide further details of that. So for example, we could say we've contacted Fred's son. Now the weight of the service user, that's an important field to complete. Now we may not know it at this stage. What we can do is we can check the care plan to see whether we have a more up-to-date weight recorded. So you can click where it says View Care Plan here. That now has taken moved our care review into this big green box here, and we can now scroll down the page and we can look at any weights that have been recorded. But we've got a weight table that we can look at here, and his initial assessment weight was 85 kilograms. So that's the weight we're going to use. So we're going to go back and click on the green option, and it takes us back to the care review, and we can put 85 kilograms in there. And now we can provide an overview of the resident and how they are doing. And this is important because this will be displayed on the care plan summary screen. Just going to put some text in here. Now, I'm only going to write a very short bit for this video, but what I would recommend is that you write quite a lot of information on here if you can, and it needs to be relevant to the way the resident is at this current time. Okay, so we've filled out what we can on this screen. We're going to hit the next button, and now we're going to start to get into the body of the review. Okay, the first section is loaded, and in this example it's health continence, and every section that we do now will follow exactly the same pattern, so we'll only do a couple in this video just so you can get an idea of how it works. Also, at any time, as long as you have hit the next button here and save the work that you've done, you can close the review down and you can then restart the review where you left off. Okay, so each section covers the same stages. So in this example here, you have to mark a level of need. So for health continence, there's some guidance notes here that you can use to try to help you assess that level of need of where this resident is on the list. We're going to put our resident at low, and we describe the current situation. So this is where you would write, well, how is the resident with regarding continence at the moment? So I'm going to put some comments in here. Okay, so just put some brief comments in here. Now, we would recommend you write as much as you can in these boxes to try to help care staff understand what support the residents will need. In terms of what actions you're going to take, this is where you can write if there's anything positive that you need to change regarding this particular area. So, for example, on continence, it could be that there needs to be regular reminders for the resident that maybe they need continence products being ordered for them, etc. I'm just going to put something positive in here about what actions we can take to help this particular resident. Okay, right, so there's our comment. And when we're happy with that information, we can hit the next button, and that now has been saved. And you can see it says up here, yes, we've completed it, and we're on 12%. Now at this stage, we can close down the care review, we can go home, and we can carry on and continue to finish it tomorrow if we wanted to. Okay, we're now going to look at another area of the care plans, risk assessments. So when you first create a resident, there are some default risk assessments that will be assigned. And in the next lesson, we'll look at how you can modify which risk assessments are given to which residents. But in this example, we're going to show you how you can access risk assessments and make changes. And you can make changes via Care Control Mobile, or you can make changes via the Care Control Windows system. So in Care Control Windows, we're going to go to the care plans of our resident that we've created at the start of this process. And again, we're going to load his care plan summary screen. On the left-hand side, we can now select from the top section, the essential section, risk assessments, and we can see the risk assessments this gentleman's been assigned. Now, this has been defaulted from this particular organisation. Your organisation may be different. And like I said, on the next lesson, we will discuss how you can change which risk assessments each resident is on. So if we were to complete, for example, the fourth risk assessment, we can click on that option. Now we can't actually do anything at the moment because we're still not in edit mode, so we need to click where it says click to edit care plan again, put our PIN number in, click forward risk, and now click to change record. Now we can complete our forward risk assessment. Now here is where we'll just score the chart where we think it's appropriate, and that now has scored him 16, which is still a low score for forward risk. When we're happy, we can hit save. When we click on it again, you'll see now we have our forward assessment completed. If we look at the movement risk assessment, that is a more detailed risk assessment. As you can see, there are lots of areas here to complete, textual areas to fill out. However, it is important to complete the risk assessments as accurately as you can, as they can then be used by the care staff to understand what the risks are in various areas. You can also access the risk assessments in Care Control Mobile. If we go to our care plan for that particular gentleman, the care plan summary will load. On the left hand side, we can then select risk assessments. If we select our forward risk assessment, we'll then see the risk assessment that we just completed. You can also, on the mobile system, select a new risk assessment. It will pull up the scores you did previously, and if you needed to change it slightly, you can do. Save changes, and now you've completed another risk assessment for Mr. Fred Jones. Okay, the final section of this lesson is to look at mental capacity assessments. Now that currently you can only complete mental capacity assessments through Care Control Windows. If we go into our service users care plan, and obviously you would only complete a mental capacity assessment if you felt that this gentleman lacked capacity in a certain area. But in this example, we're going to record one. Go onto our care plan options, and now we're going to scroll down and find mental capacity assessment. It's under consent and capacity. Okay, so here we have all our consents, which we can discuss later in a later video. On the right hand side we have our mental capacity assessments. Just like everything else on care control windows, we need to go into edit mode first of all. Once we're in edit mode, go back to our capacity assessment option, and we can now add a new mental capacity assessment. And here we can now start to complete a mental capacity assessment, which is the standard assessment that the Mental Capacity Act recommends. So first of all, we've got to pick a broad decision area. Let's just say this gentleman wants to try to leave the home. Okay. Now, once we've picked our broad area, we can go and get an example text as to what, a bit more detail about that decision. If we click that option, you can see it's actually come up with information that could be useful in terms of filling out this capacity assessment. So we can select. It says Jim has requested to leave the care home demo site, which is where our home is. He repeatedly tried to leave the home and has made it clear he does not wish to stay here any longer. Now you can add to that text if you want to, or you can accept that text. The next one is a series of questions that you need to answer. So the first one is, can the resident make the above decision? Is there an impairment or disturbance in the functioning of the resident's mind? So if we say it's a permanent disturbance, we can get the example notes, and we can just hit select, and that will put the notes in there. Next one is, can the decision be delayed? And normally this is where you would say it can't be delayed. Okay, so it's not appropriate to delay. We can get our example notes. Okay, so we need a resolution now. We scroll down now, we now have our stage 2 assessment to complete. So this is where, at present, it's been assessed that he still has capacity, so we need to answer these second set of questions. The first one is, does the resident have the ability to understand the information? Now normally that could be yes, so he does understand that there are some risks of him leaving the home. But this is where a lot of our residents who have dementia and other mental health problems may fall down. Is, does the resident have the ability to retain the information relating to the decision? If the answer to that is no, you'll notice now it says he does not have capacity. If we get the example notes, okay, it just fills all this information out for you. Jim is not able to retain the information due to the impairment of the brain. And that note is excellently written, so we'll add that into our stage 2 assessment. The next question is, does the resident have the ability to assess the information related to the decision? That may well be yes. And does the resident have the ability to communicate the decision by any means? So they may be able to say no or to refuse help, but because of the memory problems, it's flagged up they do not have capacity. Now, the capacity assessments will last for 28 days, and then it will come up, ask you for renewal, and that renewal will come up on the home status screen. The final option is any follow-up actions. If you get the example notes for that one as well, it's a good narrative that we can use in terms of keeping Jim in the home, so we'll hit select. Okay, and we can add to that if we wanted to. Now that is the completed mental capacity assessment. It says he does not have capacity. Expires in 28 days. We hit save capacity assessment. That now has been saved and is now part of his care plan. Okay, welcome to lesson 3 of the Clinical Lead Competency. As mentioned earlier, monitoring is an incredibly important part of the care control system. With monitoring, the home status screen is driven. The alerts are driven for staff to action. And it's important that as clinical leads you are aware of how to change monitoring when you need to. You can access monitoring via either Care Control Windows or Care Control Mobile. Within Care Control Windows, you'll see there's an option that says Manage Monitoring on the Staff View screen. If you click this option and you enter your PIN number in, the Manage Monitoring scheme will load. Now, the first area we're going to look at is just a simple adding and removing of monitoring. So we pick our particular gentleman, Fred Jones. You'll see that he has already been set up on a great deal of different monitoring options. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to end one of these options to show how easy it is to end monitoring. So he's not currently needing to be on intensive care monitoring, so we're going to select intensive care and we're going to click update and end. And here we've got a number of options we can choose. One, we can modify at this stage the frequency of the monitoring. So you can see for intensive care the frequency set is every 2 hours, day and night. Or we could limit the monitoring to a set period of days. But actually what we want to do in this example is we want to end the monitoring. So we're going to click where it says end monitoring. And here we've got to put a reason in. We can't update monitoring without putting a reason in. So we need to put a reason. We'll just put a reason in such as so there's a reason why we're ending monitoring. Click update monitoring, and now he's no longer being monitored for that particular area. The other thing you can do is you can actually add additional monitoring. So if we click a gentleman's name like Fred Jones, and we click add new, and we select the list, these are all the areas of monitoring that we're currently not monitoring for. So if we wanted to put him on a behavioural chart, we can click behaviour from the list, click continue, and here we are setting up monitoring. So it's a very similar looking screen. We could set up for an ongoing duration of time, or we could limit it. So we could say, well, let's put him on a behavioural chart for the next 7 days. And then the frequency of monitoring, we can change that as well. So the default is every 2 hours. That's every 2 hours, the care staff will get an alert to tell them to go and record some behaviour information. If we click change, we could say, well, actually, let's change that to every 4 hours. And we click update. So now it says every 4 hours. And now we can put a reason in. So we could say, he's a new resident, and we okay. You see there's a spelling mistake there. And if you want to, you can always check your spelling by clicking on the check spelling option. Okay. So now we have set up behavioural monitoring for Fred Jones for 7 days, every 4 hours. I'm going to click start monitoring. Now you see behaviour is on the list. Okay, so you saw how you can set up and amend monitoring for an individual resident. However, your organisation will require all residents to be monitored for a core set of monitoring areas. And we call that in care control the default monitoring. And you can amend your default monitoring so that when you add a new resident into your system, they will automatically be started on the correct monitoring areas. To do that, you need to go into Manage Monitoring. And if you've got the right permissions, you'll be able to click on where it says New Resident Defaults. If I click on that option, you now see these are all the resident defaults options we've currently got for any new resident that's added. Now, in this particular test system, we've added a great deal of monitoring areas. And you can change these by clicking on them and selecting to update the default, or you can remove the default, or you can add another default. So if the one is missing, for example, if you wanted behaviour to be for every new resident, and click continue, and you could say in your comments, okay, so let's say behaviour monitoring is mandatory for all new residents. There's a type of mistake there. Let's put a capital B on there. We click start, save monitoring, and that now is added to our default list. So when we next add a resident, they will automatically be added on to behavioural monitoring. Now what we can also do at this stage is we could apply any of these missing defaults to active residents. So by clicking on this button here, it will look at all of our current residents and it will make sure they're all on all of these options. So if you have added several residents to your care home via the system, but have not yet set your default monitoring up, you can still make sure that they're on that default monitoring by clicking this button here. Okay, it's an important button to understand. And then finally, this option, if you're completely confused and not sure what monitoring you should have, if you click this option here, this will load what we believe are the typical managed monitoring defaults for most homes. If you get yourself confused, if you click this button, it will reset itself back to what you get delivered when you have the new system. Okay, the final area of monitoring that we need to discuss is the bulk start-stop monitoring feature. Monitoring creates alerts which all the staff need to action. But if you have a resident who leaves the home for whatever reason, say they have to go to hospital, or maybe they've gone to stay with relatives for a period of days, then all that monitoring will continue to trigger alerts, and you want to stop it. Otherwise, the staff won't be able to action it correctly. To do that, if you go into your Manage Monitoring option, and again this works the same on Care Control Mobile as it does on Care Control Windows, put your PIN number in. You have an option at the bottom that says Bulk Start Stop. So we would, for example, select our resident and we say Bulk Start Stop. It knows that the monitoring is currently active, and so it's asking us, do we want to stop the monitoring? And we could say that Fred has had to go to hospital. Okay, and we're going to process that through. And now, when we click on Fred, you'll notice he's not monitored for any areas at all. By the way, all of these monitoring changes are reflected within the care plan notes for that individual resident. So any monitoring change that you make will be reflected in the notes, and so staff will be able to see that information either via the handover screens or when they're reviewing the resident notes themselves. Now if Mr. Jones comes back to the home, you need then to go and start monitoring again. So again, it's Manage Monitoring, it's enter your PIN number. You can click on the resident and click Bulk Start Stop, and now it says Restart Monitoring Mr. Jones, and you can put now that Mr. Jones has returned to the home. Okay, and we'll process that through. Now when we click on Mr. Jones again, we can now see he's back with the monitoring again. It's a really useful feature, and it saves a lot of time and a lot of hassle regarding when residents leave the home for whatever reason. Okay, we're now going to show you how you can mark that a resident has left or has passed away at the care home. And we're going to show you this via Care Control Windows, although you can also record this information via Care Control Mobile through the Care Manager's menu option. So on Care Control Windows, we are on the Staff View option here, and now we're going to access the Care Manager's menu by clicking on the yellow button down here, Access Manager's menu. Enter our PIN number. And now we have some care management menu options, and we see at the top here underneath care plan tasks, underneath add new service user, which we used earlier, we've now got record a death of a service user. We select this option and we pick one of our residents. We enter a date of the death. We enter an approximate time. And now at this stage we can enter a cause of death. Now we recommend that you wait until you have the official cause of death before you process this record through, because once you've processed it you cannot make any more amendments to the record unless you reactivate the service user. If you're worried about monitoring, then we recommend that you bulk stop the monitoring first whilst you're waiting for the official cause of death. Once we've entered the cause of death, we then process that record through, and now that service user is no longer active. And we can show how it looks on our care plans. If you look at View Care Plans, you'll notice that that service user is no longer under the active residents. If I look under Historical Residents, you'll see now that service user, Joyce Boxall, is shown. If I go and look at her personal details form, you'll see now we've got some additional fields where it says the cause of death and the date time of death, and we can no longer edit the record. There's also the ability to mark a resident has left. We can do that again through the Managers menu, put our PIN number in, and just like record a death of service user, it's the button underneath, it says record a service user leaving. When we click on this option, very similar looking form, this time we place a date the resident left, and we put a reason for why they've left. And that might be that they were on respite, or they've gone home to their family, etc. The next area we're going to look at is how you can reactivate a resident. You may have to reactivate a resident if that resident has passed away and you want to record more information against their file, or if a resident maybe came on respite and has left and then come back. To reactivate them, again you do it by your Care Managers menu. Access the menu via the yellow button, put your PIN number in, and then the fourth option down is Reactivate Service User. Now, we've only got one historical service user at the moment in the system, which is Joyce, which we actually marked that she had passed away. And now we're going to you've got to enter a reason as to why you're reactivating that service user. Process, and now service user has been reactivated. This is an important message. It says, please note, no monitoring is active for this service user. So when you reactivate a service user, you must then reactivate the monitoring. Now if you had stopped the monitoring via the bulk start stop function, then you will be able to bulk start it again if you need to. Okay, we're now going to talk about how you can amend the shortcut notes that are shown to the carers when they go to record a general note. If you remember, if you go to record care plan information, either on the Care Control Windows system or Care Control mobile system, and you select general note, you have available shortcut notes. And those notes, if I were to select the service user from the list, are shortcut text that when selected will write the text for you. Now those notes, you can actually manage those notes and change their content if you have the right permissions. The one way of accessing the management screen is via the general note screen on Care Control Windows and clicking on the Manage Shortcut option, or you can go to your Care Managers menu here, enter your PIN number, and then you can access it via the Care Managers Shortcut Notes option here. As you can see on the screen, the note title is what you see on the Care Control Mobile or Care Control Windows general note screen, and then a note template is what is placed on the screen when it's selected. If you scroll down this list here, there are in total, on this system, there are 11 shortcut notes. But we want to add a new note. So at the very bottom of the screen, we can put a new note title and we can build our own template. So we're going to put a new note title in it as new note 1. But you would describe it as something more meaningful. And then in the build template area, we're actually going to click the button where it says build template. And here we can actually build a template of the note using the placeholders that are built into the system. So the way that we suggest you create your note template is you first of all write it out for a particular service user in mind, and then you replace anything that specifies that service user with placeholders. And you can use placeholders, for example, such as first name has had a bath, for example. And then the bottom is build template. You can actually test it against a particular resident. And here you can test it to make sure that it still makes sense using your placeholders. So for example, you may write first name has had a bath, and then you could say he, she enjoyed it. And when we test that against this lady called Jean Samuels, it puts the correct notation in there. When we test it against our gentleman Fred Jones, and he likes to be known as Jim, it puts the correct notation there as well. When you've written your note template, and it can be as long as you want it to, you can hit Save Note Template. That information gets stored in here, and then when you're ready and you think that it's okay, you can hit Save Changes, and now that note template will be saved. Now you can see you've got 12 notes. And just to make it sure it's absolutely there, if we go back to Record Care Plan Information, and we go to General Note, we'll now see we've got a new shortcut note that we can pick from our list, and it'll put the shortcut note in for you. And that's how you can modify and change shortcut notes. Okay, when we looked at the handover notes as part of the carer competency, we highlighted that by default some notes are hidden. And we call those hidden notes note filter exclusions. Now you can, as a care manager, amend which notes are hidden on a permanent basis via your care manager's menu. You can only do this via Care Control Windows. If you go to your manager's menu, which is this yellow button here, you can see through your care plan administration you have an option here to set your note filter exclusion list. The items that are ticked means that they will be excluded from the handover notes by default. Now, as you can see, there's quite a few that aren't ticked, and what that means is if they're not ticked, those notes will be shown to your care staff, which is fine, but what we're trying to do with the handover is we're trying to make the handover as efficient as possible. And sometimes if you have a lot of notes that aren't necessarily meaningful to the shift start, then it can be distracting. So use this feature just to hide notes, and all you need to do, if you wanted, for example, to hide the consents notes that may have been documented, you tick it, and when you close it, that then saves it for next time, and you can just check if you want to that it's now been permanently ticked. In this video we're going to talk about allocations. Allocations are a powerful feature within Care Control which allows you to assign residents and tasks directly to care staff at the start of each shift. The allocations can be completed automatically or manually by the shift lead. More than one staff member can be allocated to a resident if necessary. You can define how tasks associated with residents are treated. Any tasks not allocated and defined are treated as allocation exceptions. When staff sign out of work, if they have any outstanding allocators on the system, they will be reminded of them. And by allocating residents and tasks, you can achieve full accountability for your care home. Okay, so how does it work in practice? Well, if we use the Care Control mobile as an example, and we sign in as a care staff member, this care staff member has been assigned 2 residents at the start of her shift. The residents Jean Samuels and Olive Tandy have been allocated to her. Because allocations have been active, the first screen she sees are the outstanding tasks for those residents. To go to the normal home screen, she can touch home at the top of the screen. At any point in time, she can go back to her task list by clicking on the Tasks button here. Moreover, she's not able to sign out of work from this screen anymore because she's been allocated those tasks. To get to the sign out button, she can click here, but it will always take her to the task screen first to show her whether there's any outstanding tasks. That is the power of allocations. Interestingly, the care staff can still operate from this task screen just like they can the home status. So for example, if this staff member clicked on the personal care for Olive Tandy, it will take her to the personal care screen where she can then sign off that task, save changes, and when she goes back and loads her task screen again, it's no longer listed. Okay, so let's look at how allocations can be dealt with at the beginning of the shift. You've got to use care control windows to currently do an allocation assignment, a manual allocation assignment. And to do that on the care control windows, if you go to the home status screen, and there's an option that says allocation detail, which is the third option down. This will show you any currently outstanding allocation issues for that particular shift. And there's a button that says Manage Allocations. If you click on that button and enter your PIN number, only care assessors can access this area. And now you're into the Manage Allocations area where you can actually create and manage your allocations. Now if you haven't got an allocation for this particular day, you can what's called regenerate the allocation. This is the most simplest way of using this particular part of the system. And here you can pick the date and the shift that you want to generate your allocation for, and then you can just click where it says Create Allocation. Now if you haven't assigned any residents in there when you regenerate the allocation, you will have a lot of allocation issues. The easiest way of doing the most simplest manual allocation is to click on where it says Full Allocation, and for each resident in your list you now need to assign them to a staff member. So for example, ground floor Jean Samuels is currently not allocated. If we click the Amend button, and then we have all our staff members listed here, and we can assign them to Jean Samuels. And you can assign more than one staff member if you wanted to. And now Jean Samuels has been allocated to 2 staff members. Okay, so you can continue and do this allocation for all the residents. You can also deal with any tasks that are not part of residents related allocation on the allocation issues screen. And each of these tasks you can actually click on them and then you can assign them to a particular staff member. So this is how you can deal with allocations in a manual way and the most basic way. The next video we're going to talk about how you can maybe semi-automate this process and make it a little bit quicker. Okay, in this video we're going to look at some more advanced ways of allocating to speed up the process. If we look at a typical residence care plan, you'll see on the personal details screen there is a field called Allocation Group. This allows you to group residents together so that when you're doing allocation, instead of allocating one individual resident at a time, you can actually allocate groups of residents at a time. Now you can assign the allocation group by this screen. However, what we advise to do, if you're going to work with allocations, to go to the Manage Allocation area to do your work. So to do that, you go to Home Status, Allocation Detail, and click on where it says Manage Allocations, and then enter your PIN number. When you're on this screen, you can then go to the Manage Rota Allocations option, and then from here you can access what we call on this screen the client groups, which are actually the resident groups. So the first option we would advise you to go into is where it says Manage Client Groups. Here you can actually create your groups that you're going to assign to each resident. And you do that very simply by adding a group, putting a group name. So we can call the groups based on maybe the areas of the building that they're in, or it could be the level of need of the residents. So we do it on level of need. We'll say single carer residents. And then we'll have another group, and we'll call that one double carer residents. Should we get our spelling correctly? And with these allocation groups, you can actually assign colours to them. So we'll call the double ones an orange colour and the single ones a blue colour. And when we're ready, we'll then save those groups. And then we can then assign those groups to our residents. So for example, Jean Samuels, we can say she is a double carer. Olive Tandy, she is a double carer. Sheila will put into the single carer. John Stevens is a single carer, and Joyce Boxall will put into the single carer as well. So you can see how we've assigned for each of our residents a allocation group. So now we've got our residents grouped together, we can now create what's called rota allocation groups. The rota allocation groups allow us to define which of those resident groups we can use at different shift times. And it may be that you have a need to have a different set of residents to assist in the morning against a different set of residents that you might assist in the evening. So in this example here, we've already got some groups defined. It says day doubles. We can click on this design icon here, and now we can add which resident groups are in the day doubles rota allocation group. Or we can have more than one resident group in here. And in the singles A, we're now going to add in our single carer resident group. So now we've got a rota allocation group called day doubles, which has got in it the double carer residents, and we have a day singles A group, which has the allocation group single carer residents. And you can have as many groups as you want, and you could split up your residents into lots of different group allocations, which could be useful when you have different staff ratios on. And when you're happy, you can hit Save Changes. Close that window there. Now when we go to regenerate our allocations, regarding our shift here, the 11th of November day shift, we're going to add some more staff to this because this isn't complete. And now, as you can see on the right here, we've got the rota allocation group option. We can actually pick those rota allocation groups. So we can say that Chrissy Smith is going to look after the day doubles, as well as Jean Thomas, and Jen Jones is going to look after the day singles A, and Stephen Jones isn't going to be allocated. And when I create the allocation now, and I look at the full allocation, you will see it's automatically picked up that Jean Samuels, who is on the day doubles group, is been assigned to Chrissy Smith and Jean Thomas, and so is Olive Tandy. Whereas Sheila Jones and John Stevens, who are both day singles, have been allocated to Jen Jones. You can now see that after we have done that allocation, the allocation issues are a lot less. We only have a resident here, Fred Jones, who hasn't been allocated, and some tasks. And to allocate those, you can simply click on the issue and assign them to a staff member. And that'll get rid of that particular entry. The objective is to make sure you clear all of these tasks from your allocation once it's been generated. It's worth noting that also on the home status screen is why you have a red cross against shift allocation now. And again, you can just deal with those tasks directly by clicking on them and doing the assignment of who's going to be doing them, and the system will move on to the next task.